Tonight we unravel a story that feels ripped from a blockbuster thriller, but it's a terrifyingly real account of love, betrayal, and the darkest corners of human jealousy. Meghan Aguilar was living a fairy tale life, a lavish home in the California hills, a successful husband, and a baby on the way. She was planning the perfect, serene, underwater birth in her own tranquil pool. But a venomous secret was coiled in the heart of her perfect life. Her husband's mistress wasn't just after her man. She was after her identity, her motherhood, her very existence, culminating in a night of unimaginable horror right beside that pristine blue water. The water was Meghan Aguilar's sanctuary. Every morning she would lower her heavily pregnant body into the cool azure embrace of the infinity pool that overlooked the sprawling canyons of Los Angeles. The water made her feel weightless, silencing the anxieties that had been nibbling at the edges of her joy. At 34, with her first child due in less than a month, she should have been ecstatic. And she was mostly. It was just Garrett. Garrett Aguilar was the architect of their perfect life. Handsome, charismatic, and ruthlessly successful in commercial real estate, he had given her everything she'd ever thought she wanted. The glass-walled mansion, the wardrobe filled with designer clothes, she rarely wore the life of curated ease. She, in turn, was his beautiful artistic wife, the perfect complement to his sharp-edged ambition. Her paintings, vibrant and emotional, filled their home with a soul he couldn't quite purchase. "It's going to be perfect, Meghan," he'd said last night, kissing her temple as they stood by the pool, the sunset painting the sky in strokes of orange and violet. A water birth right here. Serene, powerful, just like you. But his eyes were on his phone, thumbs flying across the screen. They always were. The idea of a water birth had been hers, a desire for a natural, peaceful entry into the world for their son. Garrett had initially scoffed at the hippie nonsense, but then, surprisingly, he had done a complete 180. He became its biggest champion, but with a strange intensity that felt more performative than supportive. The shift happened about 2 months ago, right after he started working more closely with his new senior vice president, Naomi Shaw. Naomi was everything Meghan was not. She was polished steel to Meghan's soft clay. Her tailored suits were like armor, her smile a precisely calibrated weapon. She was brilliant, Garrett said, a killer instinct he'd praised, and she had taken an unnervingly keen interest in Meghan's pregnancy. "Garrett tells me you're planning a home water birth." How brave, Naomi had exclaimed during a rare dinner party at the Aguilar residence. Her eyes, the color of dark jade, had scanned the pool with an unnerving possessiveness. "You'll need the best team. Absolutely the best." It was Naomi who had recommended Brenda the doula. "She's a miracle worker," Naomi had insisted, her voice smooth as silk. "She specializes in holistic, non-medicalized births. Very exclusive. I had to pull some major strings to even get you a consultation." Meghan had wanted to use the midwife from her birthing class, a warm, experienced woman named Maria. But Garrett had sided with Naomi. "Meghan, when Naomi Shaw says, 'Someone is the best, you listen.' This is our son. He deserves the best." Brenda was odd. A gaunt woman with wispy grey hair and a perpetually placid expression, she spoke in vague, spiritual affirmations that never quite answered a direct question. When Meghan asked about her certifications and emergency protocols, Brenda had simply smiled. "The universe will provide the perfect outcome, dear. We must trust the process." Meghan's best friend, Zoe Chen, a pragmatic lawyer who trusted processes only when they were written, notarized and backed by precedent, was less than impressed. I ran a search on her, Zoe had said over coffee last week, her voice low. There's no Brenda McAllister registered as a licensed doula or midwife in the state of California. Meghan, this is a huge red flag. Meghan had brought it up with Garrett. He'd waved it away. She's holistic Zoe. They operate outside the system. It's about ancient wisdom, not paperwork. Naomi vetted her. That's all I need to know. He was trusting Naomi more than he was trusting his own wife's intuition. That was the splinter under her skin, the source of the anxiety the pool couldn't wash away. This afternoon, as she floated on her back, the California sun warming her face, she saw a figure emerge onto the patio. It was Naomi, alone. Meghan's heart gave a little lurch. Naomi, what are you doing here? Is Garrett with you? He's on his way, stuck in that nightmare traffic on the 405. Naomi said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. She was wearing a chic white linen pantsuit, looking utterly out of place by the pool. He sent me ahead with the new filtration system specs for the pool heater. He wants the water temperature to be absolutely precise for the big day. He's so thoughtful. He was thoughtful. Garrett hadn't remembered the date of their last ultrasound. Naomi walked to the edge of the pool, her reflection rippling over Meghan's. It's a beautiful setup. So brave of you to do this at home. So vulnerable. The word hung in the air, weighted and strange. Meghan pushed herself to the side of the pool, her arms resting on the tiled edge. I feel more in control here than I would in a hospital. Of course, Naomi murmured, her gaze sweeping over Meghan's swollen belly. It was a look that felt less like admiration and more like an appraisal, an inventory. Control is everything. The conversation was stilted, filled with a tension only Meghan seemed to feel. She tried to steer it toward neutral territory work, the weather a new restaurant. But Naomi always brought it back to the birth, the pool, Meghan's body. As Naomi finally turned to leave, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and a flicker of a genuine, unguarded smile crossed her face. It was a private, intimate smile, the kind Meghan hadn't seen on Garrett's face, directed at her in a very long time. That's him now, Naomi said, her voice regaining its professional veneer. I'll just wait inside. After she disappeared through the glass doors, Meghan remained in the water, a profound chill seeping into her bones despite the heated pool. It wasn't just the strange visit. It was a sudden, sickening realization. The new pool heater, the specific brand of organic lavender oil for calming aromatherapy that Brenda had insisted upon, the expensive waterproof speaker system for the birthing playlist, Garrett had presented them all as his ideas. But Meghan now remembered each one being casually mentioned by Naomi first in passing conversations weeks ago. It was as if her birth, her intimate personal experience, was being stage-managed by her husband's colleague. And Garrett was letting it happen. Across the canyon, perched on an adjacent cliff, was another house, even grander and more isolated than their own. It belonged to Declan Pierce, a tech billionaire who had bought the property 2 years ago and promptly vanished behind its high gates. He was a local myth, a recluse. Meghan had never seen him. But sometimes, when the light was just right, she could see a lone figure on his balcony, looking out not at the city, but at the wild, untamed hills. She wondered what he saw. She wondered if he felt as isolated in his fortress as she suddenly felt in hers. Her sanctuary, the cool blue water, no longer felt safe. It felt like a stage, and she was beginning to fear she no longer knew her role. The next 2 weeks were a slow, suffocating crawl toward Meghan's due date. The house, once a symbol of her and Garrett's success, began to feel like a showroom for a life that wasn't hers. Naomi was a constant spectral presence. She'd appear with Garrett after work, citing a strategy session that ran late Or she'd drop by on a Saturday morning with some documents for Garrett to sign, always dressed impeccably, a stark contrast to Meghan's comfortable maternity wear. Each visit was a masterclass in subtle psychological warfare. "Oh, Meghan, you look tired," Naomi would say, her voice dripping with faux concern, while her eyes darted to a speck of dust on the mantelpiece. "You must let me handle the final preparations for the birth. You need to conserve your energy." She took over everything. She coordinated with Brenda, the spectral doula. She ordered specialty items Meghan didn't want. She even created a birthing ambiance lighting scheme with Garrett, the two of them standing shoulder-to-shoulder heads, bent over an iPad, their reflections mingling in the dark glass of the patio doors. Meghan watched them from the sofa, a ghost in her own home. Garrett was blind to it, or chose to be. "Isn't Naomi amazing?" he'd say, his voice boyish and enthusiastic. "She's a born project manager. She's got this whole thing locked down. You don't have to worry about a thing, Meghan." But Meghan was worried about everything. Brenda the doula visited twice more. Her advice grew more bizarre. She told Meghan to avoid all modern medicine, including prenatal vitamins. She advised against creating a contingency plan for a hospital transfer. Negative energy, Brenda had chanted, her eyes distant. We must not manifest a negative outcome by preparing for it. When Meghan pushed back, insisting on a bag packed for the hospital, just in case Brenda's placid mask had slipped. For a moment, a flash of cold annoyance crossed her face. Naomi was very clear that you were fully committed to the natural path. Naomi was very clear. The words echoed in Meghan's mind. The breaking point came in the form of a baby monitor. It was a top-of-the-line model Garrett had bought complete with a video feed and a remote audio function he could access from his phone. He'd set it up in the nursery, which was adjacent to their home office. One evening, Garrett and Naomi were in the office, supposedly finalizing a major real estate deal. Meghan was in the nursery, folding tiny onesies, the soft fabric, a small comfort in her growing unease. She turned on the parent unit of the monitor, just to test the sound. At first, it was just the low murmur of their voices, the rustle of papers. Then Naomi's voice, sharp and clear, cut through. "She's getting suspicious, Garrett, the way she looks at me, and she keeps questioning Brenda." Garrett's reply was a weary sigh. "She's hormonal now, anxious. It's her first time. Just be gentle with her." Meghan till Naomi's laugh was a brittle, ugly sound. "I am being a saint. I'm planning the perfect birth for her child. I'm managing every detail of this ludicrous water birth fantasy she cooked up. The least she could do is be grateful and compliant." Meghan's blood ran cold. She sank onto the rocking chair, her hand pressed against her belly. I know, Garrett soothed. "It's almost over. Once the baby is here, she'll be distracted. We'll have more freedom. It'll be easier." "It's not just about freedom." Garrett, Naomi's voice, dropped, becoming intense, almost a hiss. "It's about the principle. This life, this house, the social standing. It should have been mine. When your father chose your business plan over mine, when he gave you the seed money he promised me, he set this all in motion. I've had to work twice as hard to get to where I am. I deserve this. All of it. And you'll have it," Garrett promised, his voice weak and placating. "Just be patient. I'm tired of being patient," Naomi snapped. "I want her gone. But this has to be perfect. When she's out of the picture, the story has to be flawless. The grieving husband left alone with his newborn son after a tragic home birth accident. It's poetic. It's clean." Meghan felt the air leave her lungs. Tragic home birth accident. Out of the picture. This wasn't just an affair. This was something monstrous. She felt a primal protective rage surge through her, coiling around the child in her womb. Her phone was on the dresser. She needed to call Zoe. She needed to call the police. She fumbled for it, her hands shaking so violently she almost dropped it. As she brought it up, she heard Garrett's voice, again closer this time. What's that? A beat of silence. Then Naomi's voice, dangerously quiet. It's the baby monitor. The parent unit is on. Meghan's heart stopped. She looked up and saw the small, glowing green light on the nursery unit. They knew she'd heard. The office door flew open. Garrett stood there, his face pale, his eyes wide with panic. Behind him, Naomi's expression was not one of panic. It was one of cold, calculating fury. The mask was completely gone. This was the real Naomi Shaw. Meghan Garrett started taking a step toward her. Meghan, you don't understand. We were just spitballing a movie script, a thriller idea. The lie was so pathetic, so insulting that it broke through Meghan's fear. She stood up, her body trembling with adrenaline. Get out, she whispered, her voice shaking but hard. Both of you. Get out of my house. Naomi pushed past Garrett, her eyes locking on to Meghan's. Your house. Darling, you are living on borrowed time in my house. You just have the key for now. Garrett, get her out of here. Meghan demanded, her voice rising. But Garrett was frozen, a statue of indecision and cowardice. He looked from his pregnant wife to his mistress, his face a mess of pathetic conflict. Naomi took another step forward. You heard everything. That complicates things. I suppose we'll just have to accelerate the timeline. Before Meghan could react, a sharp, cramping pain shot through her lower abdomen. She gasped, doubling over her hand, flying to her belly. The shock, the terror, the betrayal, it had been too much. Naomi's cold eyes lit up with a terrifying, triumphant gleam. Well, she said, a slow, cruel smile spreading across her lips. It seems the universe agrees. It's time. The pain was a white, hot wave, stealing Meghan's breath and clarity. Contractions. Real ones. Coming hard and fast, fueled by a potent cocktail of adrenaline and terror. The baby was coming. Tonight. Garrett, call 911 Loft. Meghan gasped, leaning against the nursery wall for support. Garrett fumbled for his phone, his hand shaking. But before he could dial, Naomi snatched it from his grasp. No, she said, her voice dropping to a low, commanding tone that made Garrett flinch. No hospitals. We stick to the plan. Everything is ready. The plan, Meghan cried out, another contraction seizing her. The plan was a lie. You want me dead, don't be so dramatic, Naomi said, with a chilling calm, tucking Garrett's phone and her own into her handbag. The plan is to have a beautiful, all-natural water birth. It's what you wanted. We're just going to help you achieve it. She turned to Garrett, her eyes boring into him. Garrett, this is the moment. Are you with me, or are you going to throw away everything we've worked for? He looked at Meghan, his wife, pale and sweating in the throes of a premature, stress-induced labor. He saw the terror in her eyes, and he made his choice. We stick to the plan, he mumbled, his gaze falling to the floor. He couldn't even look at her. The betrayal was complete, a physical blow that hurt almost as much as the contractions. Good boy, Naomi purred. She then pulled out her own phone, made a quick call. Brenda, it's time. Get here now. And don't forget the kit. Meghan knew she had to get out. While Naomi was distracted, she pushed herself off the wall and made a desperate run for the living room, for the front door, for escape. She was surprisingly fast, her maternal instincts screaming at her to flee. She fumbled with the complex lock on the front door, her fingers slick with sweat. She almost had it open when Garrett grabbed her arm. His grip was surprisingly strong. "Meghan, stop. Don't make this harder than it has to be." "Harder!" she shrieked, struggling against him. "You're helping her kill me, Garrett. This is our baby. It's not like that," he said, his voice pleading, but his actions were firm as he pulled her away from the door. "No one is going to hurt you. We're just going to have the baby. Here. Like we planned." It was then that Brenda arrived. She didn't knock. She let herself in with a key Meghan had never seen before. A key she realized with a fresh wave of horror that Naomi or Garrett must have given her. Brenda wasn't carrying a doula's bag filled with comforting oils and tools. She was carrying a small black medical-style bag that looked cold and clinical. Her placid smile was gone, replaced by a grim, businesslike expression. "The contractions are about 3 minutes apart," Naomi reported, as if she were a doctor and not a monster. "Her water hasn't broken yet. We should get her into the pool," Brenda said, her voice flat. "The warm water will speed things along." They were talking about her as if she weren't there. They were a team. This had been rehearsed. Zoe's warning about Brenda's lack of credentials wasn't just a red flag. It was a siren she had foolishly ignored. "No," Meghan sobbed as Garrett and Naomi began to guide her, to force her towards the patio doors. "Please, Garrett, no. Let's just go to the hospital. Please." She looked into her husband's eyes, searching for the man she had married, the man who had once vowed to protect her. She found nothing. Just a hollowed-out shell filled with fear and ambition. They led her out onto the pool deck. The sun had set, and the birthing ambience lighting Naomi had designed cast the area in an eerie theatrical blue glow. The water heated to a precise temperature, steamed gently in the cool night air. It no longer looked like a sanctuary. It looked like a tomb. "I won't get in," Meghan said, planting her feet, her body rigid with defiance. Naomi's patience finally snapped. "You don't have a choice." She nodded at Brenda. Brenda opened her black bag. She took out a syringe and a small vial. Meghan stared at it, her blood turning to ice. "What is that?" she demanded. "Just a little something to help you relax," Brenda said tonelessly. "An herbal supplement." "It's Pitocin, isn't it?" Meghan said the word, tasting like acid. She remembered it from her birthing classes. A drug used to induce or speed up labor. Unregulated in the hands of an unlicensed amateur, it could be deadly. It could cause contractions so powerful they could rupture the uterus or distress the baby. "You're a smart girl," Naomi said, with a cruel smirk. "Now are you going to get into the pool on your own, or do we have to help you?" The look in Naomi's eyes promised a violence Meghan didn't doubt she was capable of. Defeated crying. Meghan felt her will crumble. She was trapped. Her only hope was to survive, to protect her baby long enough for a miracle. Slowly she lowered herself onto the steps of the pool, the unnaturally warm water swirling around her legs. Garrett stood by, wringing his hands, a pathetic accomplice. Naomi watched from the edge, a director overseeing her final grim act. Brenda loomed nearby with the syringe. The trap had been sprung. As the water rose to her chest, Meghan looked across the canyon to the solitary house on the opposite cliff. A single light was on in an upstairs window. A silent witness, completely unaware of the horror unfolding just across the chasm. She had never felt more alone in her life. The water was meant to be soothing, but it felt like a cage. The blue lights from the pool floor distorted the faces of her captors, turning them into monstrous caricatures. Naomi, a smug empress, observing her conquest. Garrett, a hollow-eyed ghost, his face a mask of sweat and regret. And Brenda, a grim executioner kneeling at the pool's edge. Another contraction ripped through Meghan. She cried out, her hands gripping the edge of the pool so tightly her knuckles turned white. "That's it," Brenda said, her voice devoid of any warmth. "Don't fight it. Open yourself to the pain." "It's too fast," Meghan gasped. "Something's wrong." "Nothing is wrong," Naomi corrected her, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Everything is going exactly to plan. My plan." Meghan's mind raced desperately, searching for a way out. She tried to reason with Garrett one last time. "Garrett, think about our son. Your son. If anything happens to me, if he's in distress." "This isn't safe." He flinched at the mention of their son, a flicker of something guilt-fear in his eyes. He opened his mouth to speak, but Naomi cut him off. He is thinking of his son, Meghan. He's thinking of the bright future his son will have unencumbered. The threat was unmistakable. Brenda moved closer. "Time for your supplement." No, Meghan scrambled backward into the deeper water, away from the needle. "Stay away from me." Her defiance only seemed to amuse Naomi. "Oh, darling, we're past the point of polite requests." "Brenda." Brenda didn't try to inject her in the arm. Instead, she leaned over and plunged the needle directly into the water near Meghan's thigh. A small, clear cloud dispersed near her leg. It was a cruel, brilliant move. Meghan couldn't be sure if she'd been injected or not, but the threat was made real. Was the drug now in the water? Was it in her system? The psychological torment was as sharp as the physical pain. The contractions intensified, becoming a relentless, brutal onslaught. There was no rest between them now, no moment to catch her breath. This wasn't natural. It was the drug. Whatever Brenda had put in the water, it was working. Meghan felt her body being torn apart from the inside. "I need to get out." She panted, her head spinning. "I need to push, not in the water." "Nonsense," Naomi said, stepping to the edge and looking down at her. "This is an underwater birth. You'll deliver him right here. In the deep end." The deep end. The words echoed in Meghan's oxygen-starved brain. The bottom of the pool sloped away steeply, just beyond her feet. "I can't," she sobbed. "I'll drown." "Then you'd better be a strong swimmer," Naomi said with a shrug. The pressure in her lower body became unbearable. It was a primal, overwhelming urge to push. Her body was taking over. Now Garrett, Naomi commanded. Garrett, his face ashen, waded into the pool. He was still in his expensive suit pants and shirt, the fabric instantly soaked and clinging to his frame. He looked ridiculous, a clown in a nightmare. "Garrett, no, please," Meghan begged as he approached her. "I'm just here to help, Meghan," he said, his voice trembling. He grabbed her arms, his grip clumsy but firm. "You need support." He wasn't there to support her. He was there to hold her in place. "Now push," Meghan, Naomi ordered from the side. "Push for me." Meghan screamed, a raw animal sound of pain and fury. She pushed, and as she did, her head went under the water. Garrett's hands held her, preventing her from surfacing easily. Panic flared in her chest. She thrashed, kicking her way to the surface, gasping for air. "Hold her steady, Garrett," Naomi yelled. He was trying to drown her. In the midst of giving birth, they were trying to drown her. The next contraction came. Again, the urge to bear down was irresistible. Again, Garrett's grip became an anchor, pulling her down. This time, as her head was submerged, she opened her eyes. The blue-lit water was a disorienting world of muffled sound and distorted light. She saw Garrett's legs in front of her, the dark shape of Naomi looming over the surface. It was surreal, a waking nightmare. She fought her way back up, choking on water, her lungs burning. Her baby! She had to save her baby! "She's fighting too much," Brenda said calmly from the deck. "It's stressing the baby. Then we need to end this." Naomi said, her voice hard as diamonds. She knelt at the edge of the pool, her face close to Meghan's. "Listen to me, you stupid little girl. You are going to give birth to this child, and then you are going to slip under the water. It will look like a tragedy, a beautiful, brave mother who exhausted herself. Garrett will be heartbroken, but he'll move on. I'll help him." Tears streamed down Meghan's face, mingling with the pool water. She looked at her husband. "Garrett, he's your son." He wouldn't meet her eyes. His own were squeezed shut, as if he could block out the horror of his own actions. The final, most powerful urge to push seized her. It was a force of nature, undeniable. "He's coming!" she screamed. Now Garrett held her down. Naomi shrieked, her composure finally cracking into raw, vicious excitement. Garrett's hands clamped down on her shoulders like vices. He pushed her under. The water rushed over her head, into her ears, silencing the world. The pressure was immense both inside and out. In the blue, silent world, she gave one final desperate push. She felt a release, a surge, as her son was borne into the water. Her lungs were on fire. Black spots danced in her vision. Garrett was still holding her down. This was it. Naomi was getting her wish. And then something broke the surface of the water. It wasn't Meghan. It was a large, dark shape, plunging into the pool from above with a massive splash that sent a wave crashing over the deck. A man. He hit the water like a torpedo, his powerful form slicing through the blue. In the chaos, Garrett's grip on her loosened. Meghan used the last of her strength to kick toward the surface, breaking through with a desperate, ragged gasp. She saw him then, a man with a face carved from granite and eyes burning with a cold, righteous fury. He had Garrett by the collar of his soaked shirt, hauling him away from her with effortless strength. It was Declan Pierce, the recluse, the myth from across the canyon, and he had just dived into her nightmare. Declan Pierce moved with a terrifying economy of motion. In one fluid movement, he had Garrett neutralized, shoving him toward the shallow end, where he stumbled and fell like a drenched puppet with its strings cut. Declan's attention was already elsewhere. His gaze, sharp and assessing, found Meghan. She was treading water, weak and disoriented, her newborn son held precariously to her chest. The baby was silent, limp. The baby, she choked out her voice, a raw whisper. "My baby." Without a word, Declan was at her side. He wasn't looking at her face, but at the child, with a gentleness that was a stunning contrast to his violent entrance. He took the baby from her arms. He held the infant securely head-angled downwards and gave 2 sharp, precise pats to his back. The baby sputtered, coughed up water, and let out a thin, wavering cry. It was the most beautiful sound Meghan had ever heard. The relief was so overwhelming, it nearly blacked her out. Declan didn't pause. He wrapped one powerful arm around Meghan's back, supporting her. "Can you kick?" he asked, his voice a low, calm rumble that cut through the chaos. She nodded weakly, and together he propelled them toward the pool steps. As he helped her from the water, a scene of pandemonium was unfolding on the deck. Naomi, her face a mask of disbelief and incandescent rage, was screaming at Declan. "Who the hell are you? You're trespassing. Get out of this house." Brenda, the fake doula, was scrambling to pack her black bag, her eyes darting toward the exits like a cornered rat. Declan ignored them both. He laid the baby on a dry lounge chair cushion, quickly wrapping him in a towel. Then he turned his attention back to the women. He fixed Brenda with a stare so cold and menacing that she froze in place. "Don't move," he commanded. The 2 words carried more authority than a shout. He pulled a phone from a waterproof pouch on the waistband of his athletic shorts. His fingers moved with lightning speed. "My name is Declan Pierce. I am at 114 Vista Canyon Drive. I have a woman here who has just been forced to give birth in a swimming pool, and 2 individuals who appear to have attempted to drown her and her infant. I need police and paramedics immediately." Naomi's face went white. She lunged not at Declan, but at Garrett, who was still cowering in the shallow's end. "Garrett, do something, he's calling the cops. Our plan." That was all Declan needed to hear. "I have a confession to an attempted murder operator. Send everyone." He ended the call and turned his full, wrathful attention on Naomi. "Your plan," he said, his voice dangerously soft. "I've been watching your plan unfold for the last hour." He gestured with his head toward his own mansion, visible across the chasm. "I have a telescope. A good one. I like to watch the hawks that nest in the canyon. Tonight I saw something else. I saw you and him drag a pregnant woman out to this pool. I saw her crying. I saw her fight. I saw your friend with a needle. And I saw him," he pointed a dripping finger at Garrett, "hold his wife's head under the water while she was in labor. Every word was a nail in their coffin." Garrett let out a pathetic sob. Naomi, however, was a cornered viper. She wasn't giving up. She spun around and grabbed a heavy ceramic planter from the edge of the patio. With a wild scream of fury, she charged at Declan. He didn't even flinch. He moved with the precision of a trained fighter, sidestepping her clumsy attack, grabbing her wrist, and using her own momentum to twist her arm behind her back. The planter crashed to the ground, shattering into 100 pieces. Naomi cried out in pain as Declan forced her to her knees. In the distance, the first wail of a siren began to echo through the canyon. It grew louder, closer, a sound of imminent justice. Brenda made a break for it, trying to run around the side of the house. She didn't get far. A man in a sharp suit suddenly appeared from the shadows of the patio. He was large, impassive, and moved with a quiet efficiency that suggested he was professional security. He blocked Brenda's path, and she skidded to a halt, whimpering. Mr. Peterson Declan said, not taking his eyes off Naomi. "Secure her." "Yes, Mr. Pierce," the man replied, taking Brenda firmly by the arm. Declan had not come alone. He had seen assessed and brought backup. This wasn't a random act of heroism. It was a calculated rescue mission. The flashing red and blue lights washed over the patio, painting the scene in frantic, strobing colors. Paramedics and police officers flooded the backyard. One team immediately rushed to Meghan, and the baby wrapping them in warm blankets, checking their vitals. Another group surrounded Declan, who calmly handed a subdued Naomi over to an officer. A third team waded into the pool to apprehend a weeping, incoherent Garrett Aguilar. As the paramedics carefully lifted Meghan onto a stretcher, her eyes met Declan's. The whole world was a swirl of noise and motion, but in that moment there was a pocket of absolute silence. His face was grim, but his eyes held a flicker of something she hadn't seen all night. Compassion. "Thank you." She mouthed the words, too small for the magnitude of his actions. He gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. "They're going to take you to Cedars-Sinai. It's the best. I've made sure of it." How had he made sure of anything? Who was this man? As they wheeled her away, she looked back at her gilded cage. The beautiful house, the tranquil pool, all of it tainted the scene of a horror movie. She saw Garrett being led away in handcuffs, his head bowed in shame. She saw Naomi snarling and fighting, her perfect facade finally and completely shattered. Meghan clutched the small, warm bundle on her chest, her son, her survivor. They had made it. Someone had seen them. Someone had heard her silent screams from across the canyon and had dived into the depths to pull them back into the light. The sterile, quiet room at Cedars-Sinai was a world away from the chaotic blue hell of the pool. For 2 days, Meghan did little more than hold her son, whom she named Leo, and drift in and out of an exhausted sleep. Leo was miraculously healthy, a strong, calm baby, who seemed blissfully unaware of his traumatic entry into the world. Meghan, however, was a wreck of tangled emotions, overwhelming love for her son, gut-wrenching grief over her marriage, and a profound, bone-deep terror from the memory of what had happened. Zoe was a constant, fierce presence at her bedside. She handled everything, acting as a gatekeeper against the world. She'd already hired a bulldog of a divorce lawyer and was liaising with the district attorney's office. "They're not getting bail," Zoe reported on the third day, her voice tight with satisfaction. Garrett, Naomi, and the fake doula, whose real name is Paula Hatcher, by the way. She has a record for practicing medicine without a license. Naomi paid her $50,000. The details were sordid, a tangled web of greed and psychopathy. Naomi's motive, as she'd confessed in her overheard conversation, was a long, simmering jealousy over Garrett's family money and success, which she felt should have been hers. The affair was just a tool. Seducing Garrett was easy. He was weak and flattered by her ambition. Convincing him to go along with her monstrous plan had been a slow, insidious process of manipulation, preying on his fear of losing the wealth and status Naomi helped him maintain. Garrett, in his statement to the police, claimed he never believed Naomi would actually harm Meghan, a pathetic excuse that no one, least of all the DA, was buying. The story had, of course, exploded in the media. Poolside birth horror. The headline screamed, "CEO husband and mistress accused in bizarre murder plot." The Aguilar name was now synonymous with scandal, but the name that fascinated the press most was Declan Pierce, the reclusive billionaire savior. Reporters were camped outside his gates, but he remained silent. His only communication with the outside world was through his formidable head of security, Mr. Peterson, who visited Meghan on Declan's behalf. Mr. Peterson was a man of few words but immense competence. He informed her that Declan had arranged for a private security detail at the hospital and had already secured a new unlisted residence for her and Leo to move into when they were discharged. Mr. Pierce has also retained a private investigative firm to assist the police. Mr. Peterson explained, his tone respectful. He wants to ensure that every aspect of Ms. Shaw's and Mr. Aguilar's business and personal dealings are scrutinized. He believes their corruption runs deep. Why, Meghan asked, her voice hoarse. Why is he doing all this for me? I'm a stranger. Mr. Peterson's formal demeanor softened for a fraction of a second. Mr. Pierce has his reasons. He believes good people should be protected from predators. The day before she was discharged, Declan Pierce visited her himself. He didn't come with fanfare, just appeared quietly in her doorway, looking just as imposing in a simple grey t-shirt and jeans as he had dripping wet in her pool. He held a small, beautifully wrapped gift. For Leo, he said, his voice softer than she remembered. "You didn't have to do that," she said, her heart pounding. "You've already done everything." "I'm sorry for intruding," he said, remaining by the door, as if conscious of giving her space. "I just wanted to see for myself that you were both okay." His eyes flickered to the sleeping baby in the bassinet, and a profound sadness seemed to pass over his features. "We are," she said. "Thanks to you." "I don't know how to thank you, Mr. Pierce." "Declan," he corrected her gently. "And you don't need to. I only did what anyone should have done." "But no one else did," she whispered. No one else even saw. He was silent for a long moment, his gaze distant. "I make it my business to see things others miss," he said finally. He took a hesitant step into the room. "My sister. Her name was Rose. She died 8 years ago during childbirth. An embolism." The doctors missed the signs. They were arrogant, dismissive of her pain. They didn't listen. The confession hung in the air, heavy and raw. Suddenly, his fierce, protective actions made a painful kind of sense. She had a home birth, planned, he continued, his voice thick with memory. But something felt wrong, so she went to the hospital. She trusted them, and they failed her. I promised myself I would never again stand by and watch someone be failed by the people who are supposed to care for them. He wasn't a random hero. He was a man haunted by a ghost trying to save the person he couldn't save 8 years ago. Meghan saw it then, the shared thread of their traumas, the violation of the sacred space of childbirth by negligence, and in her case by malice. "I'm so sorry, Declan," she said, tears welling in her eyes. He simply nodded, acknowledging her words. "Your friend Zoe is very capable, but the Aguilar and Shaw families have powerful lawyers. They will try to paint you as unstable. They will try to twist the narrative. My legal team is at your disposal. Use them. Bankrupt him. Make sure neither of them ever sees the light of day again." The cold fury was back in his voice, but it wasn't directed at her. It was the fury of a protector. He was offering her a sword and a shield, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Meghan felt a flicker of her own power returning. She wasn't just a victim. She was a survivor. And a mother. And she would fight for her son. "I will," she said, her voice stronger now. "I'll fight." He gave her another one of his small, rare smiles. It reached his eyes this time, warming them slightly. "I know you will." He placed the gift on the table and turned to leave. "Mr. Peterson will give you the keys and address for the new house. It's quiet and very, very secure. No one will find you there." As he left, Meghan was left with the quiet hum of the hospital machines and a new, unfamiliar feeling hope. The lies that had almost destroyed her were being unraveled, and in their place, an unexpected and powerful alliance was being forged. 16 months later, the California sun streamed into a different kind of house. It wasn't a glass box on a cliff, but a rambling Spanish-style home nestled in a grove of oak trees, in a quiet, secluded part of Ojai. The air smelled of sage and citrus, not chlorine and betrayal. This was Meghan's house, hers and Leo's. In the center of the large, light-filled living room, which she had converted into an art studio, stood a massive canvas. It was a riot of color. Deep, terrifying blues swirled with brilliant, life-affirming golds and whites. It was an abstract depiction of her story, the terror, the fight, the rescue, the birth. It was the most powerful piece she had ever created. Her life was her own now. The divorce from Garrett was finalized, fueled by Declan's legal team and Zoe's relentless pursuit of justice. The proceedings had been brutal and swift. Garrett, facing a mountain of evidence and a long prison sentence, had signed away everything: the house, his assets, his parental rights, in a desperate failed attempt at a plea deal. The criminal trial had been a media sensation. Naomi Shaw, remorseless and defiant to the end, was found guilty of attempted murder conspiracy and a host of other charges. She was sentenced to life in prison. Paula Hatcher, the fake doula, received 15 years. And Garrett Aguilar, the weak, cowardly man who had chosen his mistress over his wife and child, was sentenced to 25 years to life for his role in the conspiracy. Meghan had attended the sentencing, not for revenge, but for closure. Seeing them in prison jumpsuits, stripped of their power and prestige, was like closing a book she never wanted to read again. Her art, once a hobby, had become her salvation and her career. A gallery owner in Santa Barbara had seen a photo of one of her paintings in a magazine article about the trial and had reached out. Her first solo show, titled The Drowning Deep, had sold out on opening night. Critics praised the raw, visceral emotion of her work, its unflinching exploration of survival and rebirth. She was no longer Meghan Aguilar, the victim. She was Megan Morgan, the artist, using her maiden name as a final act of reclamation. Leo was toddling now, a happy, curious boy, with his mother's bright eyes and a fearless spirit. He was the center of her universe, the living, breathing proof that light could emerge from the profoundest darkness. Declan was a quiet, steady presence in their lives. He never overstepped. He was not a replacement for Garrett or a new romantic hero swooping in. He was a friend, a guardian. He'd visit once or twice a month, flying his helicopter to a nearby landing pad. He never came empty-handed, always bringing a book for her or a beautifully crafted wooden toy for Leo. He'd sit on the floor and play with the little boy, a gentle giant with a surprising capacity for playfulness. They rarely spoke of that night, but it was an unspoken bond between them, a shared understanding of trauma and survival. He had his ghosts, and she had her scars. They found a quiet comfort in each other's presence. This afternoon, Declan was visiting. He stood by the French doors that led to the garden, watching Leo chase a butterfly on the lawn. He turned his gaze to the new painting on her easel. "That's a new direction," he observed, his voice calm. Meghan looked at the canvas. Unlike her previous works, this one was not filled with turmoil. It was a landscape of the Ojai Valley at sunrise, painted in soft, hopeful pastels. The darkness was still there in the deep purples of the mountains, but it was being pushed back by a brilliant, emerging light. "I think I'm done with the darkness for a while," she said, wiping her hands on a paint-stained rag. "I'm more interested in the morning now." He smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that transformed his stern face. "Morning looks good on you." Leo, having abandoned his butterfly chase, toddled over to Declan and wrapped his small arms around the billionaire's leg. Declan reached down and effortlessly lifted the boy into his arms. Leo giggled, patting Declan's cheek with a chubby hand. Watching them, Meghan felt a wave of pure, unadulterated peace. Her old life had been a gilded cage, a beautiful lie that had almost cost her everything. This new life was smaller, quieter, and built on a foundation of hard-won truth. It was a life she had painted for herself, with her own colors on her own canvas. The past would always be a part of her story, a dark underpainting that gave the brighter colors their depth, but it no longer defined her. She was free, and for the first time in a very long time, she felt truly, completely safe. The story of Meghan Aguilar is a chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones we invite into our homes, the ones who wear familiar faces and speak in soothing tones. It's a story of unimaginable betrayal, but it is also a testament to the ferocious, unyielding power of a mother's will to survive. Meghan's journey from the terrifying depths of a swimming pool to the sunlit peace of her art studio is one of incredible resilience and strength. It proves that even after the most horrific storm, we can find the courage to rebuild, to reclaim our lives, and to paint a new, more beautiful future for ourselves. If this story of survival courage and the shocking twists of the human heart moved you, please give this video a thumbs up. Share it with someone who appreciates stories of strength against all odds. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss another incredible true story that needs to be heard. Thank you for listening.